Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. I'm excited to have my in-studio guest tonight, Karlo Dizon, Democratic candidate to the office of delegate to Washington. Believe that? 27 years young. And I tell you, but I'm reading your resume, Karlo. You got quite an impressive resume from Yale University to London School of Economics. You got it together. I was just telling you earlier, I said, this is pedigree stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, thank you for joining me in studio tonight. Tell the folks about Karlo Dizon and what was the impetus. You're 27 years old at this point. You qualified to run 2 years ago.
Yes, that's true.
Being 25, right, to be able to run. What was the impetus for Karlo wanting to jump in there and, as most folks tell, going up against the big guns?
Yeah, sure. So we've spoken a lot to the community, and the primary thing that we took away was that there was a need for change. Mm-hmm. There was a need for a new representation in DC. And for me personally, a lot of people have asked me, you have this experience nationally, you have this experience internationally, why don't you try to use that experience to help our community back home? Mm-hmm. And so for me, this is a way of doing that. It's a way of implementing what I've done in China or in DC mm-hmm.
To
represent us in the national stage.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure you're going to have your critics, like everyone does, have the critics who say, well, wait a minute, why didn't you start off as being a senator, and then work yourself up? You got years ahead of you to be able to do that, and definitely you're going up against an icon, basically. Yeah. But why now? Why now? Why couldn't you wait a few years? Because things maybe you get more gusto under yourself and all that. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, and I think the need transcends beyond myself. Personally, mm-hmm. I do understand that professionally people might have questions, but I think fundamentally the issue is with how things are now. Mm-hmm. I think we stand at a unique point in our history mm-hmm. where our economy is weak. Mm-hmm. We have high unemployment rates, and record high unemployment mm-hmm. rates. And I felt compelled, something needed to be done. And personally, my background has specifically been in politics, nationally, internationally, mm-hmm. and this is precisely what we want in our mm-hmm. delegate. Mm-hmm. We want someone who has experience mm-hmm. dealing not just with leaders in DC, but across the mm-hmm. world as well.
Now, let me ask you this as well, because of the fact that our, as much as we want to label somebody the congressperson from Guam, they're really not a congressman or a congresswoman. They're
right.
a delegate. They're
right.
a delegate to Congress
sure.
as a member of Congress. And just recently, actually, our delegate's position, the committee vote was taken away. Yeah. So basically, in essence, you have a weaker delegate at this point, regardless of who is there. It's weaker. What makes Karlo think that fact is, if you should prevail, that you would still go in? Basically, if the Republicans continue to prevail and become again the majority, you probably still won't have a committee vote. Okay, sure. So going in there, you won't have a vote. You won't be able to trade votes. So what gives gives Karlo the ammunition to be able to go in there and say, hey, well, wait a minute, wait a second, things are going to change now, when really your status as a non-voting member to Congress and even in committee will not change.
Yeah, I think that's precisely why mm-hmm. we need a strong voice. When we don't have a vote, this is precisely why our representative in Washington has to be stronger. Mm-hmm. And when people talk about my background, they talk about my education mm-hmm. or having worked at the Parliament or the White House. What that really means is that this is something that I will bring to the table that will be respected and will be valued in DC. Mm-hmm. DC is a very complicated place, and mm-hmm. they place a lot of value on things like where you went to school mm-hmm. or who you know.
Sure.
And for me, this is a unique.
That's reality.
It is, and I think we might disagree with that, right? Mm-hmm. But that's how politics is, mm-hmm. and that's what I bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And I think that especially when we don't have a voting seat, mm-hmm. we especially need someone mm-hmm. Who has a strong voice, because that's our biggest tool, that's our biggest weapon, and that's mm-hmm. exactly what we need at this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, being a Democrat, should Obama again prevail? Should he prevail in this next election, and should you prevail again? the fact also you worked on the Obama campaign, did you not?
Yes.
For his first election, right? You worked on his campaign on the Guam side, right?
And in Iowa.
And Iowa, okay. So you worked his campaign. What would that do alongside, again, your education? And of course, that's reality. As much as people want to say, hey, well, really, that's not real. Where you went to school and, you know, the old boys club, basically, you know, that's alive and well in Washington. And again, Yale, there are a lot of Yale grats. And they you know, they kind of stick together, right? Harvard as well. But would that give you, the fact that you were a part of a campaign, of an Obama campaign, would that give you, again, a heads up in the again, on the administration side, and how would that transcend, again, in the Congress side?
Sure. You know, whoever wins this election will have to work with the White House. And you know, my experience with the White House was something that you know, it was especially unique. It was something that I am proud for having done. But I think more importantly, my focus would be on how to utilize that experience to helping our community. And when this seat especially requires someone who can interact not just with Congress but with the White House as well. You know, for example, our appropriations has to go to the president before it's approved. That's something I would bring to the table. And yeah.
Yeah. No. Actually, earlier today, in the news today, the Senate Appropriations Committee, which I think Senator Inoue leads up, 2013 budgeting for the military side in Guam has been is all but zero. Now, of course, Guam is a competitor to Hawaii. You have two very powerful, you know, ingrained senators there. How will, again, Karlo Dizon master his way through this, to work through again, those blocks, those walls, that, because now Guam is a big competitor to Hawaii. But I tell you, hold on to that, we're going to take a quick break and answer after the break, okay? We'll be right back.